Welcome to this low poly course. I'm going to show you how to create a low poly scene, and in this first lesson what I'd like to do is introduce the concept of what low poly is and what it's used for. So what is low poly? Basically, low poly is any 3D model with a low level of polygons, so where the polygon mesh is as dense as possible. Here we have two spheres. For example, the sphere on the left has a much lower level of polygons than the one on the right. So the sphere on the right would be a high poly and the left is a low poly. Usually in 3D, you always start from a low poly model and then add subdivisions to achieve the desired effect. When we have the details, we can leave the model as it is, or we can do something else. For example, let's say we model a character, and when the model has these millions of polygons, then you can extract a series of textures that you then can apply to the low poly model. Those texture maps generate data on the low poly model. So what we could do is achieve a character's head, for example, in high poly with lots of details, and then paste those textures onto the low poly model, so we get a practically identical model but with a considerably lower level of polygons, decreasing the render time. Let me show you an example. Here we have a model consisting of 4 million polygons. This just wouldn't be possible for a video game, so what happens is a simplified mesh is created, in this case of just 500 triangles. Then those maps I mentioned are extracted from the high poly model and pasted onto the low poly model. So we get a kind of mix of the two, the detail of the high poly model and the mesh of the low poly, resulting in a model made up of 500 triangles but with a detail of 4 million. So that's the meaning of the term low poly, a 3D model with a low level of polygons. What's happened in the last few years is that actually modeling in this way, low poly models, has become popular and a way of making art in its own right. Here you can see illustrations created using low poly models. Scenery, trees, with little details, very few polygons, but they look stylish and interesting. Here's another example, a low poly model and a high poly one. On this course we're going to make an island with some mountains, a lake, some trees. It will be a low poly model that you use for a video game, for example. So we're going to start the course with the first modeling part, then the second part of modeling, we'll then apply textures and lighting. I then show you how to export it, and we'll take it to Photoshop, where we'll make some adjustments to polish off our image. So when you're ready, I'll see you for our first modeling lesson.